There's one very tantalizing possibility about the clouds of Venus, which is that some of us think that it's plausible that there could be life in the clouds.
Something is absorbing sunlight in the clouds of Venus. Maybe there are some microorganisms. Venus has a habitable zone in the cloud layer, so life could exist there.
Four and a half billion years ago, we had 3 terrestrial planets, all with oceans. Life evolved on one. Everything that we know about chemistry, about physics, about geology suggests that those conditions were there on Mars and Venus too.
The presence of liquid water, the presence of organic molecules, the presence of some kind of energy sources and some sort of stable enough environment for interesting chemistry to happen and take root. There's every reason to believe there was an origin of life on Venus. We don't know if there was, but if we're correct about what it required on Earth, there's no reason to think it didn't happen on Venus.
We know on Earth that once life forms, however that happens, life is tenacious. Earth is dripping with life right now. It's in every crevice, it's in the atmosphere, it's in every niche that we have on Earth after 4 billion years. It's everywhere. So in my mind, if the environment is driving the evolution of life, those environments were certainly there 4.5 billion years ago on those 3 planets.
And so it may well have been that Venus and Earth, and Mars too for that matter, all 3 planets seem to have had those conditions for an origin of life and habitability early on. It may be that our system had multiple nearby habitable planets, and if there was going to be life on Venus, life as we know it, made out of carbon molecules and such, it could not be on the surface of the planet. It's just too hot. But there is an environment in the clouds where it's at least plausible there could be some sort of biota. So in addition to all the other reasons we want to study the atmosphere in the clouds of Venus, there's this exotic possibility that we could even, who knows, maybe discover life there.
My Venus atmosphere friends talk about the fact that there is a signature in the atmosphere that they can't explain, and there is something in the clouds that absorbs UV radiation, and they don't know what it is. That signature may be due to absorption by biota, by cloud creatures.
Venus is completely covered with clouds. If you actually look at Venus through a naked eye, you don't see any detail at all. The cloud cover is almost like a fog bank that's global from equator to pole. And within this fog are these patches. You can see these patches moving very rapidly. The Venus winds are extremely fast. But these patches, they are a mystery. These patches were seen from Earth telescopes more than a century ago. The mystery has remained for all this time as to what is causing that absorption. These patches are because something is absorbing sunlight in the clouds of Venus. Bacteria could be the absorber. We know on Earth that the clouds harbor bacteria.
We have life in the clouds of the Earth. Now, that life comes from the surface of the Earth and has been transported up. Life forms can exist in the clouds, and there's certainly enough energy in the clouds to support life on Earth and maybe on Venus. You need water, you need something for it to eat. The temperatures in the clouds of Venus are shirt sleeve weather, okay? So that's not a problem.
The temperature and pressure conditions in Venus's atmosphere are pretty similar to what we experience here on Earth. So similar temperatures, maybe a little warmer than we're used to. The main difference at that part of the atmosphere, of course, is the carbon dioxide and the sulfuric acid that makes up the cloud layer. But it's possible we know of organisms that can thrive in those types of environments on Earth.
The one impediment to life may be the strong acid in the clouds, but we've learned more recently of all these extremophile organisms on Earth, including what we call acidophilic organisms, organisms that love living in strong acid. The more we've learned about strange life on Earth, the more we sort of dare contemplate the possibility of life in strange environments on other planets.
If Venus had habitable conditions for much of its history, then it's possible that life could have evolved to live in all kinds of ecological niches, just like life has on Earth. Earth has had 4 billion years for life to fill every ecological niche possible. And we find life everywhere we go. We dig deep wells, we find life down there. We find life in the clouds. And then there's another school of thought that there would be a kind of a panspermia type of event where there is mass exchange between the planets. There is a really good chance that rocks from Earth or even from Mars would have ended up on Venus. And if those carried extraordinarily robust organisms, extremophiles as we call them here on Earth, they could also populate different aspects of the Venusian atmosphere.
If we have the opportunity to go to Venus and float in the Venus clouds, we should at least think about if we can measure the conditions that might be reasonable for life today, and also any signature of life in the clouds of Venus today.
If you want to look for life, right now we have about 5 objects. We have Venus, we have Mars, Europa, Enceladus, and Titan. And I think of these 5 objects, I would argue that Venus should be a top priority. At least in the case of Venus, the search should be easy. You can launch today a spacecraft towards Venus and be there in about 3 to 5 months. So the journey is quick. You don't have to wait for your children to analyze the data that you worked hard to obtain. You don't need to find a place to land on Venus to look for life. On Venus, go anywhere in the clouds, in the low latitudes, and if there's life, you should find it because it's there everywhere, if it is there at all.